Do we have that number?
I don't think so.
I'm looking, we don't have it.
I don't think so, because there is
Well, if we were, so we've spent $1 trillion and we've given this money to universities and they're supposed to encourage poor kids to go to college. But we don't know how many poor kids went to college who otherwise wouldn't have gone to college and graduated, right?
correct.
Well, what do your audits show?
Well, that's the issue, and I mentioned it when I was
Are you able to audit?
We're not. We're not able to audit, and there are constraints against the TRIO program for its accountability. The other issue with...
Well, but I'm sorry to cut you off, but I don't have much time. So we spent $1 trillion. We gave it to the colleges. We said encourage poor kids to go to college. We don't know how many kids went to college because you don't have the authority to audit. How do you know these universities are not just using the money to operate instead of encouraging poor kids to go to college?
I'm not sure.
You don't know how?
No.
Because you can't audit.
Patriots, listen up, because what you're about to hear is the kind of bureaucratic insanity that makes your blood boil and your jaw drop. Today, we're diving into a shocking Senate hearing where one of the last real voices of common sense, Senator John Kennedy, took the gloves off and ripped the mask off a $1 trillion farce. That's right, $1 trillion of your money. Of our money. Let me ask you a simple question. If the government told you they were going to spend over $1 trillion to help poor kids get into college, wouldn't you expect, at the very least, to know how many kids actually went to college and graduated? Yeah, me too. And so did Senator Kennedy. But when he asked that question to Secretary McMahon, folks, the answer was worse than I don't know. It was we can't know. Because the TRIO program, this massive federal education initiative that's been raking in $1.58 billion every year, has zero, and I mean zero, accountability. No audits. No data. No way of measuring success. We are being robbed in broad daylight, and they call it policy. Kennedy hit the nail on the head. You give taxpayer money to these colleges that already charge you $60,000 a year to brainwash your kids, and you tell them, hey, help out poor students. And then, you never check if they actually did it? Let me tell you something. That's not education. That's not public service. That's a glorified slush fund. And here's the kicker. The secretary admitted they can't even audit where the money went. You heard that right. We gave out $1 trillion, and no one has the authority to trace it. That's not just incompetence. That's intentional neglect. You know what they always say in D.C.? If we don't track it, we don't have to fix it. That's exactly what's happening here. Now, let's not pretend this is about helping poor kids. If that were the real mission, you'd have data on success stories, graduation rates, and long-term employment outcomes. You'd show America that her investment paid off. Instead, all we got was another empty promise and an even emptier pocketbook. But wait, it gets worse. Because Senator Kennedy then turned to Harvard University.
Madam Secretary, I want to welcome, by the way, I want to ask you about the TRIO program that has been mentioned, and its sister program, Gear Up. We spend $1.58 billion a year on TRIO.
Yes.
That's $1,580 million a year. Is my math right?
I think that's right, sir.
And how long have we been spending $1,580 million a year on this program?
I'm not sure of the total length of time of the program.
More than 10 years?
Yes.
So that's over $1 trillion we've spent on this program. And in this program, this $1 trillion we've spent, we give this money, as I appreciate it, to colleges and universities to encourage poor kids to go to college. Is that right?
To provide some of those kids who have not yet been exposed to what it takes to get ready to go to college.
Okay. To encourage poor kids to go to college, right?
Yes.
Okay. And given that we've spent $1 trillion, how many poor kids who otherwise wouldn't have gone to college have gone to college and graduated?
A significant number, I would imagine.
How many?
I don't know exactly.
Isn't that a question we should ask?
I think so, and I'll be happy to get back to you with that answer. You know, the other thing about the...
But wait, Madam Secretary, I'm not fussing at you. Do we have that number?
I don't think so.
I'm looking, we don't have it.
I don't think so, because there is
Well, if we were, so we've spent $1 trillion and we've given this money to universities and they're supposed to encourage poor kids to go to college. But we don't know how many poor kids went to college who otherwise wouldn't have gone to college and graduated, right?
Correct.
Well, what do your audits show?
Well, that's the issue, and I mentioned it when I was
Are you able to audit?
We're not. We're not able to audit, and there are constraints against the TRIO program for its accountability. The other issue with...
Well, but I'm sorry to cut you off, but I don't have much time. So we spent $1 trillion. We gave it to the colleges. We said encourage poor kids to go to college. We don't know how many kids went to college because you don't have the authority to audit. How do you know these universities are not just using the money to operate instead of encouraging poor kids to go to college?
I'm not sure.
You don't know how?
No.
Because you can't audit.
Correct.
You understand hope is not a strategy.
Yes, sir.
I mean, if you told the average American, we just spent $1 trillion of your money and we gave it to colleges and universities and we said encourage poor kids to go to college, but we don't know how many kids went to college who otherwise wouldn't have gone and who graduated. You understand the average American would ask us what planet we just parachuted in from, right?
That's right. You know, Senator, if I may, there's one other issue on the TRIO program. What we have found
I'm going to run out of time.
Oh,
you can make it fast.
Take your time back then.
Let me ask you a question about our skirmish with Harvard. And I don't want to get into the merits. President Trump has said that Harvard is violating federal law and he's withholding their money. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And Harvard has responded, we've never violated federal law, but if we did, we give you a pinky promise that we won't do it again. Is that right?
Yes.
And then President Trump said, okay, no offense, but, you know, I just want to be sure. So why doesn't Harvard, I will give Harvard the authority to appoint a monitor, pick whomever they want. The federal government has the right to veto the pick. So if they pick their brother-in-law, that wouldn't be fair. And Harvard said, no, you just have to trust us. You have to accept their pinky promise. Is that basically what's going on?
Well, and not only that, but Harvard did respond to our request for negotiations with a lawsuit.
Well, but
so we're in the throes of litigation.
If Harvard would just agree to a monitor, that would solve the problem, wouldn't it?
Might serve part of it. The provost is what vice provost that we've asked that would come on to be one of the monitors on that situation.
I'm way over. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Senator Reid.
Well, thanks very much. Welcome, Madam Secretary. And I'm not a great mathematician, but I think you were talking about $1 trillion. I believe.
That's right, liberal headquarters for elitist entitlement. And let's be clear, Harvard isn't broke. They've got $50 billion in endowment money. They could fund TRIO for the next century without blinking. But instead of helping, they're accused of violating federal law. And when the Trump administration said, all right, we're cutting off your funding until you comply, Harvard's response wasn't to fix the problem. No, Harvard sued. And their excuse? A pinky promise that they'd be good next time. A pinky promise? That's how Ivy League elites deal with accusations of breaking the law. Give me a break. President Trump said, Fine, appoint a federal monitor. Make sure you're playing by the rules. And Harvard's response? Nah, just trust us. That, folks, is the ultimate symbol of elitist arrogance. They believe they're above oversight, above consequence, and above America. But here's the truth Harvard doesn't want to hear. Trust is earned. And you've lost it. Patriots, this isn't just about some bloated education program or an Ivy League standoff. It's about the deep, systemic rot in our government. It's about who the system works for and who it doesn't. Because while you work 2 jobs, try to keep up with inflation, and scrape together tuition for your kids, the DC elite are writing blank checks to universities who don't have to prove a damn thing. They waste your money, and when you demand answers, they hide behind bureaucracy. But not here. Not on Right View Nation. We are done with excuses. We are done with secrecy. And we are damn sure done with programs that help no one but the elites. It's time we demand full audits of all TRIO and Gear Up funding. Cut funding to any school that refuses transparency. Defund bloated bureaucracies that won't track results. Reinstate Trump-era accountability measures to keep these arrogant institutions in check. And elect leaders like Senator Kennedy who ask the hard questions and won't take spin for an answer. This is your money. This is your country. And it's time we start acting like it. So to every American listening, if you're sick of your money being funneled into liberal academia, if you're tired of hearing, we don't know after spending $1 trillion, and if you believe in results over rhetoric, then you're not alone. Join the movement. Spread the truth. Demand accountability. This has been another truth-packed breakdown from Right View Nation. Unfiltered, unapologetic, and always America first. Until next time, stay bold, stay loud, and stay free. God bless Senator Kennedy, and God bless the United States of America.